And we're live.
All right, good evening, everyone. We are having a public hearing for our 2023 tax budget, and I need a roll call.
Mr. Betcher here. Ms. Cheney is absent. Mr. Fisher
Here.
Mr. Knipp
Here.
Ms. Snyder
Here.
Mr. Van Haar.
Here.
Do we have a motion to excuse Ms. Cheney?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Everyone had an opportunity to look at the agenda, and if you're okay with that, do we have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I do not see anyone who's been registered as a speaker. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
All right, and I will turn it over to Mr. Hirth for
So
the budget proposal.
we'll call this my second last official duty as interim fiscal officer this evening. So we're presenting this evening. Do y'all watch the Twilight Zone? I have this Rod Serling cigarette going for your consideration. For your consideration this evening is the fiscal year 23 tax budget. The tax budget is an initial estimate of revenues and appropriations used by government entities to plan for subsequent fiscal year activity. The tax budget is required to be devised and submitted to the Hamilton County Auditor for review and approval annually in July. Our deadline this year is Wednesday, July 20th. The requirement by the county auditor is that we present a projection of expenditures that are equal to or less than projected revenue for the new fiscal year. Making such a prediction mid-year prior to the new fiscal year can be challenging, which it has been this year, particularly due to the changes in unpredictability of the national economy and the rising costs of materials and consumables that are used by all of our departments. However, we have assembled a fiscal 23 tax budget recommendation for council and for the auditor. Revenues for most of the past, for the most part for this year, mirror those from the previous fiscal year with these noted highlights. Income tax receipts are projected to increase from $860,000 in fiscal year 22, and we believe that projection is on target, to $903,000 in fiscal year 23. Based on historical receipts the village administration has reviewed, we're confident in this income tax receipt forecast for fiscal 23. The intergovernmental revenue line item has been decreased by about $500,000 due to revenues that were one-time receipts received due to the COVID-19 pandemic and ARPA funding that we had previously received. Total village general fund revenue is expected to be at $198,657. So that's $2,198,657. Total revenues for the police levy are anticipated to be $246,194. Total revenue for the street levy is anticipated to be $328,259. Then finally, the last page of the budget that is online shows that Exhibit 3, or in some cases they're referred to as restricted fund accounts, those revenues are anticipated to be about $334,100. Total general fund expenditures for the village are set to be at $2,197,908 for fiscal year 23. This amount is a 24% decrease in expenditure when compared to those that are anticipated for fiscal year 22. Reduction in expense is attributed to less spend in capital projects for fiscal year 23, as well as savings on employee health insurance with no increase to the village, as well as less expense for maintenance and repairs on the physical structure of the village and equipment used by the village. The budget assumes that there will be a 3% merit increase for the employee compensation for next year, as well as adjustments to the salary ranges and any competitive adjustments that are needed to retain top performers and to recruit. In fiscal year 23, we anticipate spending about $750 to $1,000 per employee and training and development needs across all departments. I'm going to go back and cover a couple of these things. Just let me get through this statement. Finally, with the May 22 passage of a 10 mil fire services levy, the addition of fund number 2902 reappears on our budget and has been added and will contain the anticipated revenue of $579,000 in collection from that levy to fund expenses related to our new contract with Deer Park Silverton. So for the last 5 years, we've had no levy fund in our budget. It's back with a vengeance. Couple of things I'd like to mention. Expenses are down. We're planning expenses to be down 24%. But what I mentioned at some point this evening, it seems, that one of the things we're trying to prepare for is if the economy takes a downturn. So there is no padding in this budget. This is true expense. The process we went through was to ask everybody, what's your wish list for next year? What kinds of things do you think you need to run your department? They gave that to us. We looked at it. We compared it to revenues. We came in about $175,000 over revenue, and we went in and started taking things out based on that. But the things that we are protecting is, the way I see this is we have invested in things for the last 2 or 3 years because of, thank goodness for ARPA money and COVID money. For the most part, everybody has the equipment that they need. Everybody has the tools that they need to do their jobs. This year, we need to focus on training and on salaries. And that's where I think it's important for us to ensure, particularly with the police department, that we're investing in the various kinds of training that they need. The police department has done an excellent job, and Chief Campbell will reiterate this in his report this evening. Some of the training, a lot of the training that they do is at no cost to the village because of agreements that we've made, but we'll also have the ability to invest in sending our officers where they need to go to be able to get the kind of training that they have to have. And that includes all kinds of different expenses, from housing to transportation to the actual cost of the classes themselves. I also foresee us being able in fiscal 23 to do something again with diversity training, or very similar to what we did with Dr. Hamilton in the previous year. We'd like to have her back to do some follow-up training, and that'll be included in that. When it comes to the merit increases in the budget, we've looked at an overall increase in salary ranges at 6.5%. So for the most part, for all of the positions, it averages out to a 6% overlay, which puts us in a more competitive stance in terms of what the maximum is we can pay for a position. Although the way we use our range system, we try to manage to the middle of the pay range, which is a technique and salary adjustment that most organizations use. We've also included in the budget the ability that if there are some employees who, by virtue of their time served here, and their actual performance, there's the ability for us to make competitive adjustments, particularly where we think we may be vulnerable in losing someone, or it just makes the right sense to reward somebody for their good service. Overall, I'm very pleased that we are able to do this. I want to thank Anna Gedeon for helping us put everything together. Andy Lanzer did a lot of the initial footwork to get this started. Sergeant Reed from the police department has been a tremendous help this year in getting this together. Mr. Pridenoff, I have to say, is a quick learner by fire. And this is what we're presenting for you to pass so we can get this to the auditor. And I would do that as soon as the legislation is passed. And that's what I know about that.
Thank you, Mr. Hirth. Are there any questions concerning, I know you guys all got a packet of what these what this proposal looked like. So any questions concerning it? I
So
also-
if you wish to, let's see, I'm not up there. Hang on a sec. So if you go to the web, and don't forget Yogi in the Park. If you go to financial health under the government dropdown, go to 2022 financials. And at the bottom of that page, you'll see a link to 2023 tax budget. This was by ordinance, was listed for public hearing in the Cincinnati Enquirer a month ago, I think it was. And this is the entire budget with the comparisons of actual 2020, 2021, where we think we are for 2022 and what we're estimating for 2023. So please feel free to take a look at this. It's organized by the governmental fund. So this is the general fund. The next page is the fire levy. Next page is the police levy. The next page is the street levy. And then finally, these are all of the restricted or other funds that the village has where we're directing specific things. If after you've looked at those, you have any questions, just let me know. Actually, let Eric know.
I had a question from last year that I had again this year. I believe last year we had a motion was made to investigate it or to get it changed. But I'm told that we're being told from Dusty Rhodes' office that we can't change it, which is where it should be saying personnel. It always says personal. All right. So as far as funds go for the mayor and administrative office, I was asking Ron, so is this at my disposal when we're having a July 4th event to make it $1,000 rather than $500? And he said, no, that it's not personal, that it's personnel, which of course it should be. But I'm very uncomfortable with it continuing to be an error on our books. So I'm wanting some kind of remedy for that. I will call Dusty Rhodes myself and say, are you blessing this, that we continue to call this personal instead of personnel?
It is the budget format they require of all communities. So yeah, it makes no sense to have it mislabeled, but it has been for a long time. It would have to be Dusty's office to agree to change that nomenclature in their format.
Well, I will make the call. I appreciate having the council have my back on making that call. So what is that, a request for a
Motion to support.
motion to support by giving Dusty Rhodes a call about that? Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll second.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Without objection, I will consider that unanimous. Thank you. Any other
Any budget
questions?
questions?
Just a comment, I'm really pleased with how this worked out. I've heard bits and pieces about how this has been put together last 3 months with Amy leaving, Eric coming in and stuff like that. Of all the years, the 2 or 3 years I've been involved, I've got the most understanding I've had so far. Can't say I understand everything here, but I commend your work and everything you've gone through to get this, because it feels really well thought out, comfortable, and that's just a comment.
Well, stay tuned. We've got big plans.
Okay.
We're still gonna fire you later.
I have one question. This is around this, is if we get a grant awarded this year.
Well, that's, and thank you for mentioning that.
Aggressive council.
So there are a couple of moving parts. So like I said, the only requirement we have right now is to give a balanced budget to the county. So we've done that. So the actual appropriations of what we'll actually spend next year will take place when we do appropriations at that last council meeting in November. What I expect will happen is we're hoping to get an $850,000 grant from from Hamilton County to do additional development work in the village. Chief Campbell applied for a police grant that would include some salary incentives in addition to a couple of officers for the police department. We're hoping that at least one of those officers, and maybe more, we'll take more, will come through, and all of those things will impact the budget when that happens. There's also some other funding that we're hearing is becoming available that may impact the budget. So we've done what we were asked to do at this point. Now we need to stay on top of it, controlling expense for the rest of 2022, and then making sure that any of that additional money that comes in reflects in the budget. One of the things I've asked Mr. Prudnoff to work on, probably not this month, but starting next month, is we've talked, one of the goals that I've had is to get a grant committee together, which would be driven out of the fiscal officer position. So my vision of that is that there would be somebody from the police department, somebody from the service department, maybe somebody from fire, somebody from the from council, perhaps the mayor, together as a search committee to find grants and then to have an organized method of applying for grants. There are companies, as Mr. Van Harn is well aware of, who we can contract with who will apply for grants for us, which is a good thing because it's, for us, it doesn't mean that we're starting from zero every time we apply for a grant. So this is a process that needs to be built, and I'm happy that we're at a point now, it's kind of like a strategic plan, we're at a point now that we can start looking at those kinds of things. And that should help our revenue outlook going forward.
So if we get a grant, we actually will change the budget according to it, or is that just accounted for?
So no, money comes in.
Yeah.
And everything that comes in goes to the general fund. So then council appropriates any money that comes in from the general fund to wherever it needs to go. So I can bring in money, I can get money for roads, anybody can bring in money, council has to spend it. So I can't spend the money, you guys have to. So that is the reason that we do quarterly appropriations updates, because it's reflective of unanticipated revenue. As an example, the police department got a $4,000 contribution specifically for the K-9 unit. That money has been sitting in the general fund, not being able to be used until we did reappropriations again. During COVID, we were doing, in fact, you all might remember, every council meeting, we had another reappropriation. We want to get out of that and get back to being disciplined to doing it on a quarterly basis. That's going to require us to plan ahead and make sure that we're looking at things rather than they being emergencies, that we have to have money for this right away kind of thing.
Okay.
So as Mr. Prudnoff comes online and becomes more experienced in tracking these things, and Anna's been very helpful in helping us figure out how to do some of this, then it'll get better.
I had mentioned to or requested a finance committee and Andy specifically, and Andy was took over doing this, making graphs, pie charts, and things to make some of this stuff more digestible to the normal human being, right? And I know with staffing issues and everything, we weren't able to have that kind of thing presented for us tonight about what this looks like. But what I'd like to see happen is, presuming council, agrees with this budget proposal, that when we're putting it out publicly, which I think we should do,
It's already done.
Have a pie chart along with that to help folks kind of see, because we get questions throughout the year from folks about what our budget looks like. And I think that's, and we've agreed to that in the past as a council, but that's just a good practice. So I'd like to see that.
Mr. Hurd, if we get into your dream or vision, which I really like, of the committee for the grant committee, then how does that work? We're going to try to contract with a grant company because
Yeah.
that's what we appropriate later.
So there are
Bills or-
There are other municipalities who use individuals. I believe the model that we saw for the work that you did with Little Miami Fire District, that there are people who do this for a living
That's exactly.
that we need to engage with.
There's a lot of talent and skill that goes into kind of, doing grants and doing it well.
So the thing
I
that
believe in that.
The thing that I know our goals for all of this is we would like to reduce taxes for our residents if we can. We will only do that by increasing our revenue in other areas. The only way that we can increase revenue in other areas is by grants really isn't a good approach, but it's a helpful approach, which also helps us to build capacity to be able to do some of the other things that we need to do with economic development and some of the other areas where we've got to start on that now. So, and I would mention that we had hoped to have a recommendation for the Star Fund for this evening. We do not have that yet. Just didn't come together. So hopefully by the next finance meeting, we'll be able to have that discussion.
Yeah.
It's been a busy month.
Okay, that's all my lots of questions. Thank you.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, do you have more, Mr. Hirth?
That's it for me.
So motion to accept the recommendation and move it forward on the agenda for legislation.
Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Without objection, I take that as unanimous. Do we have any other business?
That's it for the budget hearing.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your service.
And we're closed.